Faster Mike, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line today. Education, sport and culture, Onken, anything else you want to bring up with Julie Edge? Member of the House of Keys since 2016, and for the past couple of years, Education, Sport and Culture Minister as well. Faster Mike, good afternoon, Julie Edge.
Good afternoon, Andy and listeners.
Good to see you, and let's get to the phone straight away. Brian, hi, you're live with Julie Edge, MHK.
Hello there. Thank you very much, Andy. Hi, Julie.
Hi,
and,
Brian.
I commend you because every meeting of Onken Commissioners I've been to in recent years, you've been there. I think you must go to them all, do you?
I certainly go to as many as possible when I'm available, yes.
Oh, that's pretty impressive. Anyway, that's by the by. I suppose you know about the subject access request that was made by David Quirk and the subsequent Freedom of Information request about David Quirk that was put in about this. Now, as I understand it, David Quirk put this request in, and this subject access request was he wanted to know what people had said about him at the meetings that he attended and that were recorded in the minutes of those meetings. And all I can think of is this was a fishing expedition to see if there was anything else he could cause aggravation with, because it's no secret that the boardroom is a pretty toxic place at the moment. Now, I got the answer to that off the Commissioner's website, and it appears that under a Freedom of Information request put in by Mr. James Corran, it turns out that preparing the answer to the question for David Quirk has cost the ratepayers of Onken approximately £20,000. Now, in my case, if I take the rateable value of my property and the product of a penny rate being round about £7,000, it's costing 3p just to cover the cost of this expenditure by David Quirk. Now, in my case, that's cost me £20. For what? What was he hoping to gain from this exercise? And how in the name can you spend £20,000 like this of ratepayers' money on what I believe is a vexatious blimmin' inquiry?
Thanks, Brian, and yes, and thank you for acknowledging that I do attend most of the meetings, because certainly the meetings that I attend, I have concerns, and I've previously raised concerns about the conduct in the boardroom, and I will be addressing that. But the FOI, I was aware that it had been published, I think it was on the 26th of September, and certainly for the ratepayers of Onken, it doesn't look good. 3 pence on their rates for, as you've described it, somebody looking for information to then perhaps do further with it. Obviously, we're not aware of the content of any information that was disclosed. But I know myself, having data subject access requests, how time-consuming they can be. Certainly, from my point of view, when I've received one, and I have only ever received one, I have to say that it was helpful to see what information people inform you of as a constituency MHK, and certainly the majority of them were people, my constituents, informing me about individuals coming on Manx Radio saying things, and so it was, from my point of view, that was a useful exercise. However, to be utilising ratepayers' money in this way, I think it's totally and wholly inappropriate for an elected member, and I would have thought that could be sorted internally. However, having attended many meetings, the conduct and the atmosphere hasn't improved since the last election.
What are your concerns with Onken commissioners, Juliet?
It's a lack of governance. Certainly, I send emails in to elected members and you don't get responses. I have real concerns around the governance, and I have raised these, and certainly the clerk is doing his best. He's still having to attend meetings without any support from the rest of the workforce, so that's not conducive of good governance. Certainly there can be conflicts, and I've seen those conflicts happen within the boardroom, and I do raise them with the clerk, and the governance of our local authorities is just as important as it is in Tynwald.
Brian?
Well, I've seen more clerks go through that boardroom in the last few years than buses through Onken Village. And the one that you've got at the moment, I believe, and in my interfaces with him, he comes over as a very switched-on individual who's doing his very best to try to manage a very difficult situation. And I'd hate to see us lose him because of infighting. As you know, I spent over a decade in that boardroom and had many, many arguments with fantastic commissioners. And once we stepped out of the boardroom, it was over with. You fought your corner, and then you shook hands, and you were the best of friends afterwards. Terry Black, fantastic guy, had terrible battles with Terry, but he never, ever took them home with him. And I respect him. God rest his soul.
That's the right way, Brian. In any democratic process, people should be able to have their say, and it should be recorded appropriately. I do have concerns about the way some of the minutes are recorded as well, having sat in the meetings. However, people of Onken deserve good quality commissioners in there protecting the public purse on behalf of them, and as ratepayers of Onken. And I totally agree with you with regards to the current chief executive officer. The other two prior to Ross were certainly good employees in my view, from responses and for trying to make sure that the good governance and the right way of operating a local authority was adhered to. And certainly I wouldn't like to see any changes, because it's the officers trying to advise the local authority candidate members who probably got no experience in the background. I know some have been in there for a long time, but also others have been in the House of Keys. And the way the conduct is on many occasions, I'm appalled.
Okay. Well, Julie, we go back 10 years on this. Mr. Quirk left that boardroom when he was elected to the House of Keys. But at that point, he seemed to start a battle. There was a series of all sorts of questions and jibes, and legal fees were racked up and has continued over the whole decade since I stepped down, happily. But, I mean, part of this is £17,500 on legal advice. When does this stop? Do we have to
totally agree, Brian.
No confidence? What?
Sorry, Brian, to speak over you there. I totally agree, and I think it's really important, and I put a plea out there to the people of Onken: attend the meetings, and let's ensure that the conduct and the way that they are, there's many planning applications go through in that, and the conduct in that boardroom, we need to uphold the local authority members to that.
That's appalling. Thank you very much, Julie, and all the very best to you.
Good to hear from you. Thanks, Brian. We have to say, of course, that Mr. Quirk is well within his rights to put in FOIs. Everybody's got a right to put in an FOI, so that's perfectly legitimate. So, but just very briefly, Julie Edge, outside Onken residents often hear this term bandied around of Onken commissioners being toxic, which plainly, palpably doesn't do anybody any good. It's not doing the village any good, and surely it can't be much fun for the politicians.
No, it certainly isn't, Andy, and I think that's where we, as the national politicians, myself and Rob, need to try and be that conduit to make sure that there's transparency, there is good governance. I know that Mr. Quirk is pushing to have cameras within the boardroom. Certainly a good start would be just to record them to make sure there's accurate minutes coming out to the public.
Sure.
And that would be one step forward that could be affordable. But I'd encourage anybody to attend, and they will then see where the professional conduct comes from.
Okay. Well, certainly Ramsey Commission has streamed theirs, and they seem quite well viewed. Anyway, Julian. Hi, Julian. You're live with Julie Edge.
Hi, Andy, and hello, Julie.
Hi, Julian.
Hiya. We last spoke about the southern swimming pool problems on the Mannin Line about 15 months ago. During that time, the Knight, Kavanagh and Page report indicated that the southern swimming pool has been suffering from neglect for many years. But it also indicated that because of generous subvention payments only to Ramsey and Peel pools, Castletown pool was made to look like it was making a loss. But had the subvention funding been fairly distributed across all the three pools, Castletown would have come out best, putting it in a very positive light. Couple of questions for you. Has your department levelled up the subvention funding to the southern swimming pool this year? When will the southern swimming pool resume full-time 7 days a week opening like the other pools have done? And can you shed any light on the content of your department's final report that is currently going to Tynwald?
Thanks, Julian. And, I know that you have called many times with regard to this, but the Southern Pool is run by an independent board which is made up of members from the local authorities within the southern area. So, but they do have a chair from one of the local authorities. And with regards to the subvention funding, clearly that has been a process that's been in place for some time, but the piece of work that has been directed by Tynwald is ongoing. We've set up a pools board from the local authorities to look into that following the Tynwald resolution, and we'll certainly be coming back to Tynwald with any recommendations that have come forward, but it will be, I'm still to be briefed fully on that, and we do need to brief the pools board on that to come forward with the recommendations.
Right. So my understanding is that the board, if there are shortcomings, need to request subvention from your department. Have they actually had such a request this year? Because I think this year was particularly critical for them.
So the Tynwald resolution stated that we would continue to support the Southern Pool whilst this report was brought together with all of the chairs of the pools involved, and it will go back to Comyn and then into Tynwald. With regards to a continuous actual support to the Southern Pool, I understand that the pool board seem to have got a good grip and understanding. I think there's been quite good financial management done down there and looked at all of the risks. However, they do continue to liaise with the department, and we support them in line with that Tynwald resolution.
Right. Just one final thing. You said that it's an independent board, but isn't it a statutory board? I mean, ratepayers are paying for the pool to be open all the time, really. I mean, it's in some ways, it's no different from the buses. I mean, we pay towards the buses and then you pay to get on the bus. We pay for the swimming pool and then we pay to go in the pool. So there were mention on some of the local news about the Southern Swimming Pool going insolvent. If it's a statutory board and it's basically a public facility, how can those words be used in terms of a public swimming pool?
So it's funded through the rates, and obviously it's down to the local authorities to ensure that there's an element of rate contribution. However, the subvention, as you've mentioned, does get divided out into the local pools, and it does also there's an element of loans that are being paid back by some of the, so the more recently constructed pools. So it is quite complex, but Julian, I'm sure you know who to contact about the pool in the south. They have made some tough decisions to try and bring everything in line. The rates contribution is different throughout the island, and this is what the pools report's all about. And we need to look at all of this and come back with a solid report and recommendations to Tynwald.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Julian.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Julie.
Good to hear from you. I suppose there's one thing, Minister, if we could just ask you, can you give any comfort to the people who hang on to the rumour, possibly Manx Skeet, that the Southern Pool's in trouble and could disappear?
Certainly, I'm not aware of any recent rumours with regards to that. The Southern Pool Board know that they can contact the department if there is any further difficulties. I haven't been made aware of any, certainly since the last subvention and then that additional funding that the Southern Pool Board had.
Okay. Hello, David. You're live with Julie Edge, MHK.
Oh, good afternoon, Andy. Good afternoon, Julie. 2 points to address, if I may. Firstly, when Keir Starmer becomes Prime Minister, probably next year, the Labour Party have stated their desire to levy VAT on private school fees and use the money to further fund bespoke state education initiatives. So I'd like to ask the Minister, firstly, does she support that approach, and would the Isle of Man be obliged or likely to follow suit? And secondly, my issue is on school real estate. I'm a parent of a child at Castle Rushen High School, and I'm certainly not convinced of the need for a new build school. What is an issue, though, is capacity at certain schools in both the primary and secondary sectors. So what thought has been given, or is being given, to the building of an all-island sixth form centre, which would have a number of academic advantages and which would, of course, then free up capacity in the secondary schools? So, Minister, what do you see as the advantages and disadvantages of an island sixth form centre? And given the pressure on finances to help fund educational projects, will the DES start to look at cost savings by addressing the viability of some of the smaller primary schools, where capacity continually hangs at around 50%? Schools like Doon, Ballaugh, Andreas, whose pupils could readily be accommodated elsewhere.
Thanks, David, and thanks for a number of questions there. Certainly, I had been made aware of what the Labour conference is talking about. It's not something that I have actually discussed or have a personal view on at the present time, and certainly it's not been discussed in the Department or the Council of Ministers. But party conference season brings out some comments like this. With regards to Castle Rushen new build, clearly before, and I have faced criticism for this, David, before I was going to go forward with the sort of sketch diagram, which is what I seen when I arrived in the department. I've made sure that I've done a full strategic review of that site to make sure that we can maximise the site for the south, and that's what will come forward. And the Treasury Minister recently at the government conference indicated that the funding, I think it was 42 million at the time, is still in the pink book. But with regards to the new strategic approach and having a capital projects unit created again, I know I've worked with them in the past and they were very successful. There is funding now to go to the next stage of Castle Rushen High School. So that's where we are with that. With regards to your comments with, you're very aware of the school. Obviously, condition surveys of all of our schools have been carried out, and there is opportunity. And I am discussing in our department. We are looking very closely at sixth form centres, capacity of them, and also the capacity of all of our schools. But my biggest challenge, David, and for the Isle of Man, is the east, and for capacity and for places for students.
Whereabouts in the east? So
it's the whole of the east, Andy. Clearly we've got some schools over capacity, but we've also got to then look and consider, if you think of students in a primary school, the numbers on roll are falling, and then also in secondary, Ballacombe numbers have fallen again this year, and we need to look at the projection. But I think the most important thing for the island is to have this full strategic approach to our infrastructure and to get the best outcomes for our students. And if that, when we look at this more closely about a sixth form centre, if that's the right thing to do, that's certainly what I'll be recommending.
And what's causing the diminishing role? Is it a falling birth rate or emigration?
Well, obviously it does change each year, Andy, with different cohorts that come into school. However, in the east, since September, we've had students arriving in our schools that were not expected. So, it does move. And, of course, we've always built, when there's been a new housing estate, we've always built a new primary school in that area. now a lot of those estates are getting older. There's not so many children in the areas. So I think we need to be looking at this approach totally differently, utilise the excellent buildings we have, and let's look at some of the older structures and see what we can do with them.
Final word, David?
Yeah, I mean, I welcome the idea of a strategic approach, but I still, the only bit you haven't answered, Julie, is will you, if necessary, close schools where the capacity is becoming like 50% and has been so for year on year? Surely that is not out of the question.
Certainly, it's something that we are looking at, all of the capacity in our schools, and we'll do the right thing for the community in the right area. But the main thing for everybody to consider is the best outcomes for children and having the best environments of learning.
Okay, thanks, David.
Thank you.
All right, good to hear from you. From one David to another David. Hi, David.
Hello there. Hi, Julie.
Hi.
What it is, I've just been reading an article about Jersey, who's opening up a brand new training facility for the up-and-coming change in planning for renewables. And they recognise that it's essential to have training on island for tradesmen and apprentices so as they become qualified and accredited. What's happening on the island?
Thanks, David, and thanks for your question. And this is one actually that we've pondered over with regards to the gas training, because we have a facility there for gas, which, in theory, it is a resource that's not going to be utilised so much in the future. However, we are ongoing with upgrading that resource. But certainly the principal of the college is very aware of the emerging sort of training needs for example, solar panels, air source heat pumps, ground pumps, etc., and the sustainability approach for the future for construction. And certainly as we make changes within any legislation or building regulations, we need to be able to make sure that is built into any existing courses, or if there is anything new that needs to come online. We did have a challenge this year with regards to joinery apprenticeships, and we managed to resource another lecturer to be able to ensure that we did get more students onto that. So there are challenges, and it's all down to really and truthfully the resources available at the time. But I'm keen to make sure that we're given the best offering, and anybody that really wants to train or retrain into a trade, that we can offer that facility and options on Ireland. But it could be a mixed approach to learning.
David?
Well, that hasn't been the case for quite a number of years now. I'm in the gas industry, and I've been asking this question since January 2020 about training on Ireland. A company from the UK...
I think you disappeared.
Nothing's been done.
Oh, you're back now. Sorry, carry
Pardon?
on. You disappeared for a moment.
Okay, no problem. A company from the UK...
I think he's disappeared. All right, thanks, David. I think the question was, I think, that a company from the UK used to provide gas training over here. That contract came to an end, so what's going to happen to train gas fitters over here?
So the company that was doing the training weren't successful, I understand, in getting the contract for the continued training. However, then we've had COVID in between. But we do offer a very generous package for gas regulation, and for people to be trained and to keep up their certification at the present time. But as I've said, we are in the process of upgrading our current facilities up at UCM, and I have visited the site prior to its commencing, and as soon as that's achieved, we'll ensure that people are back on island training.
Okay, this is from Malcolm. You don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but it's up to you. I think some of your fellow ministers have too many responsibilities. So if the Chief Minister said he wanted to reduce your workload, which area would you most like to hold on to?
Certainly, obviously, there is discussions that always take place around where strategically responsibilities and services should sit. With regards to education, sport and culture, they are all really important, linked together. Particularly, I've obviously worked in education on the leadership team, and prior to sports being with education, it was not as successful, and our students didn't get the same offering as they do today. And our culture and arts are really important so that students get that overall offering of a good, grounded education, that they can then have those options to choose for their future. And certainly I know children's services was previously part of education, and I think a child is most important in all of this, and we should consider how we are making sure all of our policies and services are well aligned and that we all work together for the best outcomes for everybody. But I would, currently I'm quite content with what responsibilities I have, and I think they all work together and we do work very closely together, and those offerings are available to all of our students, and also the arts and cultures, the Villa Gaiety. There's so much offering for people on the island, and we want to attract people to the island, and these are all really important areas that we should be investing in.
Well, it's always the squeaky wheel that gets the grease. So let us into a secret, if you would, Julie Edge. What do you get the most criticism for? What's the most flack that you get online, in emails? And
I think it's communication, and I think probably most ministers would say that perhaps education doesn't celebrate enough. We've got some amazing work happening in our schools. I get contacted by ex-colleagues. They share work with me over, it's an amazing work that students do in a podcast at Ballacameen, and she's got the Lieutenant Governor involved, and I think that's amazing. There's some such creative work happening. I'm here to take that criticism. I'm here to make sure that if there is anything wrong, I can try and put it right. But strategically for the island, I've got to consider the whole island.
do you mind getting flack? Do you mind getting criticism?
I don't mind getting criticism. What I don't like, Andy, is a lot of people, they do come on the radio with completely incorrect facts, and I shout at the radio quite often when I'm sitting listening to you. So, I think if anybody has got concerns, please contact me. I'm always available. I have been I haven't been well recently, but I'm still available on the end of the phone, and I'll always have an online meeting with anybody.
We're live with Julie Edge, MHK, the Education, Sport and Culture Minister. It's 26 minutes before 1. We're live till 1.
We make oil heating easy with our range of services. Whether it's our free smart tank monitoring systems or just our efficient all-island deliveries, Ellen Bannon Fuels has it covered. Call us on 844 000 to find out more.
Wherever life leads you, let us lend a hand with an HSBC personal loan. Maybe you've got big plans for a special celebration, new car or home renovation, or you want to get your finances in order by consolidating your debts. We offer competitive rates and a quick decision process. You'll be able to access your funds as soon as we approve the loan. Search HSBC Loans and get in touch today.
View full terms and eligibility criteria on the HSBC website. HSBC Bank PLC is licensed by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
When you save a little money, it means a lot these days.
If you're looking for bathrooms and tiles, you'll always find something new in store at Pacesetter. For surprisingly affordable prices and excellent choice, search online for Pacesetter Douglas. Or better still, visit the Pacesetter Bathroom and Tile Showroom on Harris Terrace and see the new styles in store.
You can get the best of everything, where the price is twice as nice.
Business owners, if you're looking to get involved in a great local cause, then find out about the Queen's Pier Restoration Trust. Opportunities include helping out and discovery days for staff, along with sponsorship opportunities to help with the restoration. Call Graham on 355 104 to discuss the corporate support options available to keep this historic Manx landmark for future generations. Call Graham today on 355 104. This audio has been kindly sponsored by Paul Carey and Sons.
Revisions to government's capital procedures and regulations might not sound like the most riveting of subjects, and yet tens of millions of taxpayers' pounds are spent each year on government's capital programme. From big projects such as the Promenade Scheme and Liverpool Sea Terminal down to much smaller things like new hospital equipment or a still proposed flight simulator for the airport, all these are delivered using these capital procedures. So changes can potentially reduce cost and bureaucracy. On Agenda this evening at 6 p.m. on Manx Radio with me, Phil Gorn, Andrew Smith, MHK, tells us what has changed and why. Government is not known for reducing red tape and bureaucracy. Will this time be different?
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
And Juan. Hi, Juan. You're live with Julie Edge, MHK.
Afternoon, Andy. Hi, Julie. How are you?
Hi, Juan. I'm fine, thank you.
Hope you're better. I was hoping to catch up with you at the conference the other week, but I think you're a bit under the weather, so I hope you're better now. Yeah, I'm sure you know what I'm going to talk about. I'm trying to get to the bottom of the RSC education bill. And I asked, I questioned the educators and Paul Crane and the minister last week, who was standing in your place at the meeting. And it's not per se so much about the sex education bill, which I think that's the first time that I've managed to speak to you in public about this. It's predominantly the promotion of transgenderism within this bill, which, if we look around the UK and we look around the world, this is a very, very big subject. It's been heavily financed and it's been heavily backed, as Antifa and BLM have been before. And you seem to have brought in a bill here, or someone's brought in a bill here, which is from Scotland, which seems to be flawed to start with. And I would imagine probably following DEIs, which is diversity, equality and inclusivity, which and ESGs, which are going around the world at the moment, you seem to have employed this tackle of kind of getting to the edge of promoting transgenderism, which I feel is quite concerning, considering we've got I listen vans floating around the island as like Tesco delivery vans at the moment, which we've got concerns about mental health issues. My concern is that you're teaching children at an inappropriate age about things which really you shouldn't be teaching them. And considering our mental health issues in the island at the moment, I find that quite concerning.
Thanks, June. And I know we've briefly had chats about this, but with regards to what was introduced, it was introduced in 2020 as an advisory curriculum. And I think that word advisory is perhaps where it shouldn't have been. I think it should have been put out to the schools in the right appropriate format and manner. However, the report is out. I hope you've had the opportunity to look at that and read, go through that second report. But the most important thing, and I've just mentioned it now, was communication with parents so that they're aware. I've had as many parents contact me saying, when will it be back? Because they have concerns that they're quite content for school to inform at the appropriate age. And I think that's the key. It's making sure that that curriculum is delivered at the appropriate time, and it's got to be for the age of the student in front of you. However, the other side of the report was that we needed to have dedicated professionals who are comfortable delivering this curriculum, and they can also be aware then of the students in front of them, and they can support the students through the learning that many parents say is really essential. And certainly on the island, we've seen how essential it is with a few cases recently that have been in the news. This curriculum won't come back unless we look at it from the Isle of Man point of view, and it will come back as a Manx version of the curriculum, and it will fit with the requirements that we have in the Isle of Man. And we've got to work with our professionals. I know that it's slightly delayed because of the school holidays, but our professionals are all back in our schools now, and it's my job to make sure that the officers in the department are doing that work with the professional people to bring back the right curriculum that's appropriate and it's well communicated with our parents.
Juan?
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And yes, I've seen the 50 pages of the report, and I'm sure there had to be a capital cost for the black ink for the redactions on it, which made it quite kind of difficult to read in certain places. What concerned me is, I talked to various different people, and a person high up in the ESC who was involved with this, who said it should have been left as it was. You've got ministers who come on, one being a teacher who was not happy with the way that this has been brought in. Even the children's champion, when I asked her on this program had concerns with it. And we've got teachers who didn't want to teach it. Beside the fact that Cura tried to get involved in this and stop the narrative right at the start, I find that a lot of people seem to be concerned about it. I'm glad that you're taking it back and saying that you're going to tailor it to the Isle of Man. And I think I spoke to one of the educators at the conference last week who made concerns about teaching people appropriately for where they live in the Isle of Man and not following big agendas in the world which kind of don't really have a place here. So I'm happy that you're taking this on board. I will be keeping an eye on it as it goes on, because I think, as we all agree, I think the future of our island is with our children and what they're being educated with. And just on a finishing note, maybe, you introduced this without telling the parents, and I think you've addressed that issue there on addressing parents. Maybe you should be, as parents are so busy these days, they put the responsibility of the children's education with the government. So maybe they should be notified of stuff which is going to be added to teach their children, rather than you saying you can take your children out when they actually don't know what they're getting taught. The consideration of telling children that there's 72 genders and how to have sex changes, I think, is inappropriate at certain ages. So I do hope you do address this in future.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Juan.
Thanks, Juan.
Just one point. Juan just mentioned the children's champion, Kerry Sharp, who was on. When she was asked it, she said, as a parent, she had misgivings, but as a professional, she understood what had to be done. And the fact she did mention, obviously, that children mature at different ages. And there are some 15, 16-year-olds, 14-year-olds who know absolutely everything. And there are some 18-year-olds who are completely naive. So how is DESE going to negotiate that little minefield?
And that's certainly where I've just mentioned to you, and that's why we need professionals that are very familiar with the curriculum, but also, along with the class teachers, understand the students that are in front of them, because we all develop at different ages, and it should be about what stage the students are at for the delivery of that. Certainly in my day, I had this delivered to me, but it was done in a human biology lesson. So things have moved on. But the most important, it was an advisory curriculum that came in 2020. Problems have arisen in the last year. I'm addressing them along with my department members, and we'll make sure that all of the recommendations are put into place and that parents are informed. But parents have always been able to opt out of areas within school curriculum anyway. So again, that's just something is perhaps parents were not aware, and it's down to that big communication piece to make sure they're aware where they can access the curriculum and they know the content.
Julie Edge, MHK, Education, Sport and Culture Minister, with us live on Mannin Line, as is Ken. Hi, Ken, you're with Julie Edge. Hello, Ken.
And if it's not going ahead, what's
Ken, would you start from the beginning? We had a technical malfunction.
Okay. I was just wondering what the latest is on the proposed new science block for the QE2.
Thanks, Ken. Obviously, you'll be aware that we welcomed a new head teacher to QE2 last year, and obviously there's a new approach from Treasury with regards to capital projects. So the STEM block at QE2, we've provided the opportunity for the new head teacher to become involved in that, and it will go through that whole new capital projects. But as I've said earlier, we are looking at the whole of our school estate as to what we are providing within our school estate, and obviously we have to work closely with the Department of Infrastructure who do all of our maintenance, and we need to make sure that we've got the right appropriate facilities in all areas of the island that students can access.
What's your thought, Ken?
Well, one of the bungalows that's going to get knocked down is being lived in. The other one is lying empty. I was just wondering about, government buying land, and perhaps what they buy it for doesn't go ahead.
So that's certainly, I was aware that the bungalow on site there was being rented out, but again, that's done through Department of Infrastructure Estates. I think that was for the access in, but it is certainly been looked at again. And if there is any update that I can publish, I'm certainly happy to do that.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Ken, for that. Ray's with us now. Hi, Ray. You're live with Julie Edge.
Fast am I, Julie. Sorry to hear you haven't been well. I hope you're much better soon. I am an Uncan resident, but what I want to talk about affects the whole island and the future of our children, and all our hospitality businesses and hotels, etc. Because I'm a big FC Alaman supporter, and they are putting the Alaman on the map in the northwest of England, particularly in a way that no advertising campaign could do it, and bringing lots of away supporters to the island, and they love it. It just seems to be a bit of a shame that the government or whoever is a bit slow to react to situations. Like 2 seasons ago, we were averaging 1,700 people coming to the Bowl to watch the FC Alaman home games, and sometimes people will get wet, but because the cover only is part of the way, only a third of the stadium or whatever, and I think that something should have happened to make sure. Why did someone in government not say, well, are we happy to have our citizens and the away supporters getting wet? They've had a chance to extend it a bit further, and it doesn't seem to have happened. That's one thing. So I say you couldn't pay for the promotion that FC Alaman is doing. The goodwill we've generated, and people coming to Alaman for the first time to support a football match, and they love it here, and they can't wait to come back. They come back for holidays, etc., etc. And a lot of what the promotion is done by unpaid volunteers. Everyone in the club is an unpaid volunteer, I believe. Yeah. The players don't get paid.
Okay, so let's talk about the scale and the scope of the bowl.
Yes, certainly, and thanks for the question, Ray. I did watch a few of the games previous season, and certainly it was a big family event whenever there was a game on. Obviously, finite resources and investment is always the issue, but I do know the capacity, I think, at the Bowl is about 3,000, and I know they reach that on many things. We have many sports professionals representing the island throughout the world, and certainly we need to make sure that any investment, we have to look at it as a department throughout all of our sports, and that there are bodies that look at this and provide sponsorship in that, but certainly FC Isle of Man and what they're doing since they've become FC Isle of Man and now in the league that they're in is great news. And Paul Jones, who's their manager, is obviously an employee of the NSC as well. But from an investment point of view, we have the Island Games coming up in 2029.
I was going to ask that. Okay.
So we've got we have got some investment that needs to be done at the NSC. Prior to that, I'm not necessarily saying that's going to be all at the Bowl, but the whole site will be getting investment for the Island Games, and we do have the representatives from the International Island Games Association on Island this month to do the inspections for the games. And obviously the sports are not selected yet, but they will be looking at all of our facilities to see what we can offer in 2029.
Okay.
And we do have there will be an announcement about the NSC and a change shortly, which I think will be very well received by the island.
Okay, so briefly, Ray, what would you like to see? The Bowl completely covered?
I just think it is fantastic what all our sportsmen all around the world do, and we should be very proud. We punch well above our weight. The difference here is that the FC Alaman are bringing lots of visitors to the island on a drip feed basis all through the lean months and we want to make sure we don't allow our goose to be killed that's laying that golden egg.
Okay, all right, Ray. Sorry, we've got to dash on, but happy to get that point across, and well done to the Ravens On a cold, wet Saturday night, they beat Wythenshawe 1-0. Well done.
Whether you're fitting out a business office or looking for a stylish home office, you'll find excellent choice at Office World, the island's largest display showroom of office furniture, with a huge array of desk configurations, including height adjustable and bench options, plus seating in mesh, fabric and vinyl finishes, along with a myriad of storage solutions, from filing cabinets to bookcases and cupboards. Find all this and so much more at Office World on Spring Valley Industrial Estate.
Office World! Celebrating 45 years, don't miss the B&B Furniture Anniversary Sale. With prices rising elsewhere, B&B is celebrating in style with our anniversary price drop sale. As well as great savings, free accessory vouchers and free bedding packs, look out for our manager specials with up to 45% off and immediate delivery. Plus, everything's available with up to 3 years 0% finance and no deposit to pay. Join the party at B&B Furniture in Snugborough with the 45-year anniversary sale. Ends this Sunday.
EPS just finished painting our house and we're delighted with the result.
Very impressed with the speed, quality and standard of work.
We would recommend EPS highly.
House looks like new.
Brilliant job from start to finish.
EPS, transforming properties island-wide with a revolutionary Protex wall covering system, guaranteed for 10 years. Visit eps.company for details. There's a waiting list, but it'll be worth it.
A good job well done.
Thank you, EPS.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
And Julie Edge, MHK. Just very briefly then, where are we with the Island Games bid? When will we know if we've got it?
Oh. Apologies, lost my headphones. Obviously, we founded the Island Games back in 1985, and certainly once they've done this inspection in October, we'll know more. But I was in Guernsey. I did do the presentation to the Island Games Association, and certainly it looked very promising, and we have got the investment secured to bring the facilities up to speed.
Okay, it predated COVID. It seems like it's been with us forever. It's the teachers' pay and conditions dispute. Where are we?
Okay, so I'm happy to confirm that all the current actions under the action short of strike action ended on Thursday the 21st of September. And obviously there's only one new action that's been enacted by the union, which states that staff will only need to take one break duty per week. I'm really pleased that we've been able to introduce a working time agreement for our teachers, so that's new terms and conditions, and that also came into place in September, and this will give us the stability we need around our schools to make sure our students have the best options and opportunities in education. And it, parental meetings and that will also be back in place. I'm very aware that our schools are already organising off-island trips and that inter-school sports and putting on the extracurricular and activities, and it's very welcome, but it's thanks to the hard work of the department. I have had to set some parameters, but we're working really closely and collaboratively with the unions now, and that's the right way to approach any of this. And we've uplifted our teachers' pay as much as we could at the time, and we'll continue to put into place any of the UK pay award recommendations that come forward. But thanks to everybody working together and collaboratively that we've got to this now, that the ASOS is off, and hopefully our schools and our parents will see that our schools are operating with that extracurricular and support for their families.
James, you just got about 30 seconds for your question. What was it?
It was to do with a comment that Daphne Kane made last week when she was asked about head teachers covering multiple primary schools. And there was just a little something that she said that caught my ear, which was that she hadn't had any received any negative feedback from teaching staff on that. And I just thought, could that be because they're not being asked and they don't have sort of the confidence to speak up? And so I'm not involved with teaching, but I spoke to a few people who are, I know a few people are, and that was basically what was confirmed, was that it's extremely unpopular policy. And essentially the department don't do anything to directly engage their staff to find out, how where they are, how happy they are. And so I thought, well, it's almost certainly the case that if you were to take a straw poll of all of the primary school teachers in this instance is you would find an extreme level of dissatisfaction among staff, and that can't be good.
All right, thanks, James. Minister?
Yeah, certainly. I think the collaborative approach, and I think Mrs. Kane, MHK for Garth, she talked about federated schools. We don't have federated schools on the island. That is significantly different. We have head teachers of more than one school. We currently have we have 6 who are operating like this, all within the primary setting, and certainly from a communication point of view with our staff, I'm very aware that there are large staff meetings. We'll be able to continue those staff meetings now that the ASOSA and action short of strike action is finalised and finished, and hopefully our staff will see what really is happening here. It provides great opportunity for our staff to progress within their careers, because whilst we've got that executive head teacher, there's a head of school then and deputies, so it gives a progression point of view in training.
Is that going to carry on? Is that policy going to move on?
It's certainly working well in the schools that are operating it. I can see the advantages.
Okay, so thanks for being with us today, Julie Edge, MHK. You've had lots of messages, by the way, just to guide you on the way back to full health, so we wish you well. Thanks for being with us today. Tomorrow we're back with an open line on 66 13 68. If there's anything you want to say in the meantime, you can email manninline@manxradio.com. Sorry we didn't get to all the calls. We try as much as we can. So open line tomorrow. Christy's on next, and enjoy the rest of your Monday.